And so I went back to my room and I prayed. I said, God, I need a breakthrough anointing tonight. And as I was praying, a massive angel came right through the roof. And I mean, he was probably about 8-9 feet tall, very muscular. And I felt this wind that came into the room. And I just knew in my spirit that the angel was the angel of the winds of change. And as this angel went back through the roof, it was like it lasted about 10 seconds. He went back through the roof. I thought to myself, did that just happen? And when I looked down on the ground, I found this, Sid.
I've never seen it looks almost like a corkscrew the way it is.
Yeah, so it's, and the Lord spoke to me. He said the angel of the winds of change is an angel that changes spiritual seasons. They go from winter, they bring a shift into regions and cities or even into people, churches. They go from a place of winter to spring or winter to summer or no manifestation to manifestation.
I had this vision. I was taken up into heaven and I was going through a really hard season and I was taken up. And when I was there, I had this bridal gown on and I was wearing these really old, worn out tennis shoes. And I was running towards Jesus. And I was out of breath, which I think is how most of us feel when we're in warfare. We feel tired out, wearing down, weary, And Jesus, he looked at me and he said, no, Anna. And he said, listen, take these. And I looked in his hands and there's these beautiful ballerina dancing slippers. And he said, put these on and worship. So I put on the slippers, I took my old sneakers off, put on the slippers, and then I started dancing. And as I danced and I worshiped, there was different colors were released in the throne room there in heaven.
I was driving in my car and praying like I usually do. And suddenly we would call it second heaven. And I stood in front of a golden mountain and next to me was an angel. So in that golden mountain there was a door and I asked the angel, am I allowed to enter in? And he said yes. So I entered in and I saw things around in this mountain and then I saw a treasure room and I went into the treasure room and in the treasure room I saw there were so many treasures in the treasure room. But what I also saw is that these treasure rooms were guarded by demonic entities. So they couldn't see me, but they could say something is different in the atmosphere because I was guarded. So I saw this treasure box and I thought, I want to have this treasure box. So I asked the angel, can I have this treasure box? And he said, yes, you can, because that was stolen from your ancestors. And because you were made righteous, and because you have a testimony of sanctification, which means you are in a covenant with God, you are allowed to redeem that. So when I took the treasure box, I immediately wanted to give it to Jesus. And suddenly I was in the third heaven, how we would call it, and I laid it in front of Jesus' feet and suddenly was back.
We rented a home, but we had no furniture. And one day, Mom and Dad went out to pray for somebody, and I was about 15 at the time. I was alone at home, and this big furniture van arrived. They said, is this where the Reverend Berry lives? I said, yes, it is. And so they said, well, just sign here. I signed, and I opened the doors, and in came the furniture. And I said, the lounge furniture will go there, the dining room there, the bedroom there, lamps, kitchen, a stove, a fridge, everything we needed came into the house. And I had just signed for it. And my mom and dad came home. And they walked in and they said, Lil, what have you done?
What did you do?
I was used to God providing. I learned something that day.
What?
Said, I learned that if you sign for it, it's yours.
One of the major one that sticks out in my mind is a young man who was rather rebellious. I came to one of Joe's meetings and his friends asked him, aren't you afraid to go to this meeting? And she goes, no, I've been around Bob Jones, Paul Cain, nothing ever happens to me. So when he walks into the room, he said two huge hands grabbed him around the waist, whispered in his ear and said, "I thought you said nothing ever happens to you," and slams him to the floor. And for 3 hours, he's wrestling with an angel. And you can literally see this happening because he would try to crawl away and it would pull him back.
All of a sudden, she was up ministering and then angel feathers start falling. And I'm sitting on the front row and I'm saying, am I believing what I believe I'm seeing, Lord? Feathers just start flowing. And when they started, she said, I'm turning it over to your pastor. And I said, whoa. And I heard the Lord say, tell the people to stand upon their feet and worship me. I'm not done. We begin to worship God and feathers falling, and the saints were saying, oh, Pastor, look at the feathers on your coat. Lord said, just worship him now, honor him now, let's worship him. We begin to worship, and then a young lady come down the aisle shaking, and when she opened up her hand, it was a garnet gem appeared in her hand, which is her birthstone.
Do you have that there?
Yes, I have it right here.
Show me
I have
which
it right
one
here.
it is.
This one right there in the center.
Now, just out of curiosity, because I see these angel feathers, how come there's so many different colors?
You know,
I mean, there's blue and yellow and purple and brown. And
you know what the Lord revealed to me? There's different nations of people. There's black, there's white, Hispanic, Filipino, Italian, Vietnamese. There are different races of people. Why not different colors of angel feathers?
Well, I was in a Hilton. It was a nice hotel. But when I looked up after that dual proclamation about the great eagle and being safe under the covering feathers of the Lord, there was an opening. It looked like an air conditioning duct, frankly. It wasn't that impressive. And I knew instinctively if I jumped into that air conditioning duct, I could go into the heavenly realm in a way that I had not usually been able to do.
when you say jump, what do you mean?
I never left I never left my bed, but I jumped.
Okay.
I just took off. And when I took off, I went through this demon region, and demons were saying, "Hey, you can't go through here. Who do you think you are?" And I just laughed at them because
You were moving into the heavens, is
at
what
the
you're saying.
speed of light, it was fast. It was fast. And then I landed in that heavenly place. Of course, I thought it would be real bright, but I thought, gosh, it's sort of dark, a little shadowy. Then I noticed I was under, I don't know how tall, 18, 20 feet, maybe more, but it was an eagle's wing. And I realized I got what I'd been proclaiming. I was under the shadow of the Almighty, under the wing of the great eagle. And I noticed emanating out from the wing, now not appliqued, not stuck on it, but oozing and coming out of the wing were grapefruit and softball size precious stones, and then big chunks of precious metals.
There was a man.
Yeah.
Turned the flashlight on to himself and went into a creature. I saw that with my eyes, yes, sir. I was sleeping at the time, and I heard something, so when I woke up, he was standing there, and he had this sax in his hands, and he started to play it over me, you know, because he sings songs of deliverance over us, but I found out that he was playing this beautiful saxophone over me, and he took it away from his mouth and handed it to me, and he said, "You play." And I go, "Lord, I can't play like that." He said, "That's because you're doing it wrong." He said, "Let me show you." He said, "Stand up." So I stood up. My wife was still sleeping. And I looked around me. He goes, "See all that around you?" He said, "That's the Holy Spirit and the presence and glory of my Father." He said, "That's always there." He said, "What's wrong is you're not breathing in heaven first." He said, "Breathe that in first and then blow it through your horn and it'll work out just fine." So I took a big breath, and all this gold air around me went inside of me. And I put that horn that he handed to me in my mouth, and I blew, and it was exactly like Jesus had played. And so he taught me that, he said, everything you do, Kevin, should be from the breath of heaven.
Jerry, this is your personal Bible.
Yes, sir.
Correct? How long has it been in oil?
Over 2 years now.
It looks as good as the Bible. As a matter of fact, 200 gallons in 2 years. Johnny, I have to ask you, in your opinion, what is God's purpose in this oil?
He said, man can only represent me. He said, but I manifest who I am in what I do. And he said, this Bible and this oil is a physical manifestation of everything that you think's impossible. And he said, it's a manifestation of everything that you say is unbelievable. And he said, it's a manifestation of every prayer for every person that you've ever given up on. And he said, all I want is if you believe that's me doing this. He said, nothing's impossible, nothing's unbelievable, and I haven't given up on a single person, a single prayer that you've ever prayed.
What happened with the oil on Israel on that next page?
It started to flow through the Bible. When it got to the back of the Bible, it went into the maps and the concordance and stopped, and when it stopped, it formed a heart over the Middle East. We were speaking at a ladies' conference in Atlanta, and one of the ladies that morning came up to me and she showed me a picture. She said, this is my son. And he was sitting on the side of a hospital bed. He didn't have any hair. He looked real frail. They said he had stage 4 lymphoma. He was dying. And while she was showing me the picture, the son walked in the door for the conference, and he has a full head of hair, a full beard. He's smiling. He's waving his Bible around. And I said, what happened? She said, I put oil in his muffins. And she said, for days, she said for days I would put oil in his muffins every morning, and so he would eat muffins with oil in them. And he said after the next week he went back to the doctor. When he went back to the doctor, they said there was no trace of cancer whatsoever.